This is Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement or how to buy consulting services. You'll get tips on how to use consulting, buy consulting, and managing the consulting. And now your host, Helene Lafitte.
Welcome back to Smart Consulting Sourcing, the best podcast for insight into the world of consulting procurement. My name is Helene, and I am your host. And in today's episode, we'll be decoding consulting prices and what really influences the numbers. But like always, I'd like to first give you all a brief recap of last week's episode, which was all about the fundamentals of consulting pricing. So in consulting, time is currency. And consultants aim to maximize utilization rates with various fee structures. The time and materials model, relying on hourly and daily rates, offer transparency, but can lead to extended timelines and unforeseen cost. Flat fee provide predictability and risk management for the client, yet clients may end up paying for a marathon instead of a sprint. Retainer fees are offering flexibility, but might prioritize other engagements over urgent client needs. And finally, value pricing shifts the focus from time to perceived value. And giant consulting firms adjust flat fees based on anticipated value, while a growing trend involves value sharing models. Success fees tie consultant payouts to specific outcomes. Percentage-based fees link compensation to transaction values, and metrics-based models reward hitting performance milestones. As you can see, each model comes with its own set of pros and cons, turning the consulting fee landscape into a strategic dance between time, value, and risk. So if you missed our last episode, don't worry, you can dive deep into our discussions anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. And for a deeper dive into the consulting procurement universe, you can check out consultingquest.com and discover there our white papers, our ebook, and podcast transcript that I hope will inspire you. And of course, don't forget to spread this valuable podcast episode with your network and leave us a review. Your feedback fuels our passion to continually bring you top-tier content. Also, we've got exciting hands-on workshop lined up covering everything from mastering negotiations with consulting firm to crafting effective RFPs. So if you're keen to join, just reach out at hcl@consultingquest.com and embark on with us on this enriching journey. All right. So you might think a project cost is as straightforward as picking a price tag on the shelf, and the reality is a bit more nuanced, right? Even with fee structures laid out as clear as day, the same project, identical in every on paper, can fetch widely different estimates. Why is that, you ask? It's because a myriad of factors can come into play, influencing the final number you see on that proposal. So today, we're not just scratching the surface, we're going to dive deep into the heart of what shapes consulting fees. From the people drafting the proposal to the context of the project, from the consulting firm with its unique brand capabilities to the ever-changing dynamics of the markets, each of these elements plays a pivotal role in the final estimation. But don't worry, we're going to unpack all of this in a way that's as clear as your morning coffee. No jargon salad, no beating around the bush, and who knows, you might find a nugget or two of wisdom that could save your organization a pretty penny, or help you understand why sometimes that penny is indeed well spent. So let's get started and unravel the mystery behind the numbers in consulting prices. And to kick things off, we zero in on a pivotal aspect that often swings the pendulum of pricing, the people factor. So it's easy to forget amidst the spreadsheets and service descriptions that at the heart of every proposal are people. And not just any people, individuals whose unique blend of skills and experience and expertise determine the value they bring to your table. Remember, you're not just buying a service, you're investing in human capital. So first thing first, it's impossible to ignore the premium placed on expertise. Consultants, much like artists, come in a vast array of specialties, from the jack of all trades generalist to the master of a singular craft. When we talk about the breadth and depth of expertise, it's often said that the deeper the knowledge, the higher the cost. But let's pause for a moment to consider what goes into cultivating such expertise. So it requires a significant investment of time and energy to sharpen these skills, to author these insightful white papers, and to produce the very podcast you enjoy at no cost. This intellectual labor, while invaluable, doesn't directly contribute to billable hours. In essence, experts have a more limited inventory of days they can dedicate to client project each year. And this scarcity, as you might guess, influences their pricing. Now, when you're taken aback by the quote from an expert involvement in your project, I encourage you to shift your perspective. Consider not the hours they'll spend, but the value they'll bring. To illustrate this point, let me share a real-life anecdote that perfectly encapsulates the value of expertise. So it's a small company that was grappling with a piece of machinery that had so stubbornly ceased to function. And despite the best effort, any fix was but a temporary solution. In an hour of need, they called upon a renowned expert of this particular machine. Upon arrival, the expert looked at the machine, then, with a knowing glance, took out a small hammer and hit a seemingly random spot. And to everyone's amazement, the machine whirred back to life. When the time came to settle the bill, the procurement officer was astounded by the expert's fee, $5,000 for what appeared to be 5 minutes of work. So demanding an itemized invoice, she couldn't fathom how such a brief intervention warranted such a cost. The expert's response was as enlightening as it was succinct. So travel fee, $100, knock on the machine, $50, knowing where to hit, $4,850. So this story beautifully illustrates the crux of expertise in consulting. It's not merely the act, but the accumulated knowledge, experience, and intuition that guide the expert's hand. The value lies in the years of honing the ability to diagnose and resolve with precision, a value that far exceeds the sum of time spent on any given task. And while it might share a dance with expertise, seniority brings its own unique rhythm to the floor. It's not just about what you know, it's about how long you've known it and how well you apply it. So here is an eye-opener. The cost difference between a partner and an analyst in a consulting firm can be staggering, often reaching a 5-fold increase. So before you pick the phone and demand only partners on your next project, let's, pump the brakes. Not every task requires the heavyweight champion of the consulting world. Need someone to spruce up those Excel sheets or polish a PowerPoint presentation? Well, an analyst has it covered, delivering the goods without the heavyweight price tag. However, when you're facing a Gordian knot of calculations intertwined with sector-specific knowledge, that's where the story changes. A partner becomes not just useful, but indispensable. And this brings us to a critical juncture in our discussion, team composition. So it's a well-understood concept across many fields that too many cooks spoil the broth. And this wisdom holds especially true in consulting. The structure of your team doesn't just influence its impact, it significantly changes the overall cost. But there's another layer to consider, the allocation of time each team member dedicates to the project. So it boils down to the numbers of full-time equivalents actively working to drive your project forward. The catch, keeping tabs on part-time consultant, is a task that could easily rival herding cats. It's tricky, to say the least. So consider this. Does your project really require partners' oversight more than a couple of days a week? Are all those subject matter experts listed in the proposal essential to the mission, or are they just here to impress you by adding weight to the document and the invoice? Remember, these high-caliber professionals come with equally high price tags. So it's about striking a delicate balance between the different profile, the depth of expertise, the task at hand, and your budget, of course. And each project with its particular demands and goals paints a different picture of the resources, the time, and expertise required to bring it to fruition. At the core of this discussion is the understanding that no two projects are alike. When we dissect the anatomy of consulting fees, the scope of work stands out as a critical element. It's the core of the project, defining what needs to be done, whether it's a full-scale organizational transformation, fine-tuning a specific process, or integrating cutting-edge technology. And here's the deal: consultants don't sell magic beans, they bill their time, and time, as we all know, right, is a finite resource. The broader or deeper the scope of work, the more of this precious resource gets consumed. It's simple math. A wide-ranging scope that touches multiple facets of an organization, or a deep dive into the intricacies of a specific area, both translate into a heavier workload. And with a heavier workload does come a heftier price. I hear you say, recalling our previous chats where, champion value-based pricing. Well, yeah, you're right. But here's the twist. When we pivot to value-based pricing, the scope doesn't just outline the work, it maps out the impact. That's right. The scope in this context isn't about the hours to be logged, it's about the difference that to be made. And as the scope of impact broadens, so too does the fee. There you go. Now, the complexity of a project will also impact the fee. And when I talk about complexity, I'm not just referring to the technicalities of the project itself. Sure, the inherent difficulty of the task at hand plays a significant role, but complexity can come from the client's organization or the broader context within which the project operates. It could stem from navigating a highly regulated industry, entangling a web of legacy systems, or aligning diverse stakeholder interests. The more complex the project, the more resources it demands. This isn't just about logging more hours, it's about the level of skill and the strategic thinking required to navigate through the maze. This is where the composition of your consulting team becomes crucial, potentially requiring a larger number of consultants, including those with more experience and seniority. So the delivery model is all about how the work gets done. Essentially, it's a division of labor between the consultants and your team during the project. The chosen style of engagement significantly sways the pricing. Are you and the consultants rolling up your sleeves together, co-developing solutions? Or is the consulting team taking the reins, delivering the work while your teams provide support? Or maybe it's the other way around, with your internal teams doing the heavy lifting based on the consultant advice. Each scenario carries a different price tag. Co-development or having consultants lead the charge often means a higher investment, given the intensive involvement and expertise required from their side. And on the flip side, a model where consultants play more of an advisory role can be lighter on the budget, relying on your team to execute the plan. So before signing on the dotted line, take a moment to assess your needs and resources. How much can you realistically invest, and how available are your teams to engage in the project? Your answers to these questions will guide you toward the delivery model that not only fits your budget, but also aligns with your team's capacity to contribute. Now let's shift gears and tackle an aspect of consulting fees that might initially seem counterintuitive: the duration of the project. So common sense might suggest that the longer the project, the higher the cost. However, the reality of consulting engagements often flips this expectation on its head. Interestingly, it's the shorter project that can carry the heftier price tags. Let's unpack this. So for those quick, short-term projects, you're often looking at prices that might as well have been plucked straight from a catalog. Unless, of course, you're backed by a strong, ongoing relationship with a consulting firm, which might tilt the scales in your favor. But why the sticker price for these short gigs? It's really straightforward when you boil it down. Consultants are in the business of selling their time. And like any smart business, they're looking to keep their teams as busy as possible. Utilization is the name of the game here. For short projects, there's a higher risk for the consultants of gasps between engagement, which can lead to idle time, every consultant's worst nightmare. Now, flip the script and consider longer-term projects. Here's what the economy starts to shift. Longer projects provide something akin to a safety net for consulting firms. They come with the assurance that their teams will be engaged, active, and billable for the foreseeable future. This insurance against downtime allows consulting firms a bit of wiggle room to adjust their rates. So as we draw this episode to a close, it's clear that pinning down consulting prices isn't as straightforward as we might like. The nature of consulting with its intangible essence adds layers of complexity to how services are priced. But here's the kicker. Consultants are adaptable creatures, always ready to navigate through the ebbs and flows of client needs and project demands. The composition of your consulting team, their collective experience and expertise alongside the nitty-gritty of your project specifics play pivotal roles in shaping the cost. They aren't just factors, they're levers at your disposal, especially when you're working within the constraints of a tight budget. And remember, understanding those elements doesn't just prepare you for sticker shock. It arms you with the knowledge to engage in meaningful negotiation. You're not just at the mercy of the first price quoted. With insight into the why and how of pricing, you can pinpoint areas where adjustment can be made, ensuring that you get not only the expertise you need, but also the value you deserve. So looking ahead to our next episode, we'll be zeroing on value-based pricing. We'll also take a closer look at its exciting corollary, value-sharing fee structures. So it's going to be an episode worth tuning in, I'm sure. So make sure you join me next week for that. All right. So thank you for joining me today on this very interesting discussion of decoding consulting prices. Your thoughts and feedback are always welcome. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or drop an email at hcl@consultingquest.com. I'm always game for a chat. Until next time, stay safe and keep up the smart consulting sourcing guide. Au revoir for now and happy sourcing.
You've been listening to Smart Consulting Sourcing, the only podcast about consulting procurement. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit the website at consultingquest.com. Find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. For questions and comments, send an email to ellen.lafitte@consultingquest.com. See you next time.